I'm Steph Garcia with AthleticDirectorU, and I am so excited to be joined by Joan McDermott, Athletic Director at San Francisco. Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm excited to talk about this. You've had a non-traditional career path. You spent 20 plus years as a Division II athletic director.
Right.
And most folks would think that being at that high level for so long might kind of put you in that box, that Division II box.
Yes.
So why did you make that leap?
So for me, I felt like I had reached all my goals. As a Division II athletic director, we were on a roll. Our program was doing fantastic. Teams were very successful. Campus was wonderful, but felt like I had one more step in me. Mm-hmm. And I am from San Francisco. I went to University of San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
And Scott Sidwell, who was the AD at the time, reached out to me and said, I'm really looking for someone to come in, SWA, but be high level. You can, help create what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And so we met, we hit it off, and that's how it all started. So for me to come back home, and, again, it was a little bit of a leap of faith, but I was home, and I was at a place I really wanted to be. And Scott also said, I'm going to end up moving east at some point with my family. And then that happened, but, it wasn't a sure thing. I would be the athletic director, right? But it worked out. So, yeah, I feel really good about it.
How did you deal with that uncertainty, both for the leap from D2 to D1, and then also for that kind of maybe limbo period when it wasn't a sure thing?
So what I decided to do, and typically what I do is I try and focus on what I can control, right? That's what they all say to do.
Right.
Sometimes that's nerve-wracking, but I'm like, you know what? I've done well here. If they don't agree, I'm fine. I love my job where I am, and I'm okay there, but I really want this job. Mm-hmm. I feel like I can really take what Scott did and continue and take it to the next level. So they saw that, and part of that was, people that worked in the department, some of the coaches, some of our alums, that were very close donors, they all kind of stepped up on my behalf, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right, so.
There's something
special. Worked well.
Something special about going back to your own alma mater.
Absolutely. Very special. And being back in the city, because that's what you call it. And reconnecting with people. And, University of San Francisco basketball used to be the place to go in the city. And so that's been my dream, is to bring that back. And we were really rolling until COVID started, of course, 2 years ago. But now it's picking up again, and we're starting to get, of course, now we can have fans again. We couldn't last year, but people are coming out of the woodworks. They're like, I haven't been to a game in 20 years. Oh my gosh, I grew up going to games here. So great to be back. I'm going to keep coming. And that's what we want. We want that connection with the city and with our alums.
I mean, the Bay Area is pretty great for basketball in general, so that's exciting to have that brand growing.
For sure. And then being connected with the Warriors too, because they moved back to San Francisco and they're at the Chase Center. And so we've been able to play 2 games there, which is great. Our men hosted Davidson back in November, and that was really fun. So that's another way to elevate our programs as well. And the Warriors have been great with us in a wonderful relationship.
So let's go back even further. You started your career as a coach.
I did.
How and why did you decide to make that move into administration?
So interesting enough, it's where I always wanted to be. Now, there's some days where I say, why did I want to do that? And I just go back in the gym, No, and I'm mostly joking on that. But I really wanted to be in administration. And really at the time, it was more for women. Really to help women's programs and build that up. I didn't ever see at that time I could be an athletic director over the whole athletic program.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so but to get there, my only path was to be a coach at the time. So I wasn't sure about that, but I jumped into coaching volleyball, and loved it. Did really well as a volleyball coach. I kept going. And been a Division I volleyball coach. I had a lot of opportunities, but I said, no, I really want to be in administration. I don't know why, but this is where I really want to be. And to me, it's about the student athletes, and that's always been huge to me. So I got the opportunity and I jumped, and it was hard to give up coaching at first, of course, because that day-to-day contact with student athletes, I really love that. But I was able to make that transition, and it's been really enjoyable.
Do you have any advice for folks trying to be in that position?
So I would say use your coaching skills, the things you do as a coach, as you lead, because it's honestly, it's the same leadership skills, right?
Right.
And so what I did, I adopted the philosophy, okay, the coaches are my team. Okay, and so I'm going to coach them and lead them and help elevate them as well, just like I did with my student athletes.
Right.
So that's been my philosophy and how I've worked with it, and it's been really good.
How did you find your footing when you first became an athletic director?
It was the part that was a challenge because at the school in Denver, Metropolitan State University, I was an internal candidate. So moving from being a coach, SWA, assistant AD, to the AD, I'm now my colleagues, I'm now the boss. So that definitely was a little bit of a challenge for me. But within 6 months to a year, I was able to establish myself, and many of the people there, coaches, supported me through that, and it just took me a little while to find my footing, and even at University of San Francisco too, because when you think about it, I was a D2 athletic director. So obviously there's going to be some bias. Well, now she's D1, how can she do that? She's been at D2, right?
Right.
But I did the same thing in my head, just watch people. I'm going to control what I can control, and I believe in myself, in the same philosophy on what we did at a high-level Division II university, we can do here, or Scott had already started it, right? So we were able to we've been able to continue it.
At what point at San Francisco, as the athletic director, did you feel like, okay, I've got this?
Probably this last fall, because last year was almost a timeout, with COVID.
Yep.
So, I would say actually in March of 2020, I felt like we were really there. We had a lot of momentum. We were going in the right place, and teams were doing really well. And then, of course, COVID hit. So everything kind of spiraled the other way for a while. But then it was an okay timeout, too, to really build some other relationships across campus, even though they weren't in person, because San Francisco's been very conservative and still are. Everything's over Zoom, any cross-campus meetings. So I was able to do that and help build that foundation at the same time. And then this last fall, I feel like we've hit it again. And part of it, too, is really getting to know our trustees, our board of trustees, because obviously they're the bosses. They run the university. The president reports to them, and they are really happy with what's happening in athletics, and really building those relationships with them is very, very helpful.
So crucial to have that campus athletics alignment.
Oh, my goodness. And so I did a few things during COVID. So there is a big strategic planning committee for the whole campus. I volunteered on it, and I'm like, it was hard because it was a lot of time and it was over Zoom, but I thought it's really important for athletics to show the rest of the university, the faculty, the rest of the staff that, athletics wants to be a part of this campus and really build this brand, right?
Yep.
And move the university forward.
So there is kind of a couple different thoughts in the industry. One is that you need to, find your lane and just dominate, whether that's development or compliance or whatever, but just find your niche and just be so good at it.
Right.
There's the other thought, and maybe this is prevalent in D3, D2, the low majors, where you need to be jack of all trades. And you might be an associate AD for development, but you also do marketing and fundraising and comms.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts on that?
So I think either way works. It just depends on the person and how their path goes. For me, I wouldn't do it any other way. because I felt like I got a broad base experience, right? And then as a Division II AD, I didn't have the staff that you do at Division I. So, I'll explain to our marketing people or our external people, you might try this, you might try that, because at Division II, I was a little more involved in that. So I feel like I'm able to give a little more leadership. I'm not going to micromanage it and do it for them, of course, but just giving them some ideas. I feel like I can mentor them a little bit more because I have that broad base. I never was the compliance person. Obviously, that's just not my thing. I mean, of course, love the NCAA, love the rules, and always going to follow them, but I wasn't one to be the person to have to monitor compliance. So we have some really good people there. I actually was, as an assistant athletic director, business manager, so I have that side. And then when I did become athletic director at Metro State, I made sure I worked with our VP of development. I wanted to go out on calls. I actually did it at the small school I worked at in Iowa before I was even an athletic director, because I wanted to learn it. He's like, yeah, I'm happy to teach you. I'll take you with me. So remember these rules. And, so it was good for me to get that part of it as well. But I knew I needed that if I ever wanted to reach my goal.
Well, you have a very unique perspective because you were a head coach. So you might have more insight into what they're going through, the daily questions and struggles and challenges they have. What advice would you have to other ADs who maybe didn't have that experience as a coach or an athlete?
Sure. That's a really good question. So what I would say is, because that does help, sometimes coaches can feel very isolated. They get in their season, there's a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. Who are their colleagues? Well, it's probably their competition, right? Well, they're not going to call them when they're in the middle of the season. So they need that support. They need that person, somebody in your department. It could be you, it could be somebody else that they can go talk to, and they feel supported. And, but also be called out if they need to be, right? So I think that's important. That relationship is critically important. If they feel good that they have someone supporting them, that helps them. They don't feel so isolated. That gives them a little more confidence, and they're more willing to open up as well. So that's what I felt for me as a coach. I really felt sometimes maybe I didn't have. It's like, gosh, I have no one to turn to. Who can I talk to about this? I got these things going on. So I just want to make sure our coaches have that support system internally.
Can you give us a little insight into your relationship with your star young men's basketball coach?
We talk,
especially with the generation gap.
Absolutely. Well, isn't that funny? Yeah, because he is young, but he's very refreshing, right? But he, we talk all the time. We see each other all the time. So I live right across the street from the gym. He lives 2 streets up. Okay. So we're right there. I mean, I see his wife, I see his kids all the time, and if I'm not stopping by his office every other day, we're on the phone, we're texting. We haven't talked today because it's game day for him, of course. But we did yesterday. We communicated for a while, and the day before, I went and sat in. We had a tough loss Saturday night, so I left him alone. And then I waited till Tuesday, actually, and sat in at the very end of practice and just waited for him to be done. He came over and sat down with me, and we just started chatting, and so that's what I do. Yeah. But he'll call me anytime, text me, or he'll have his assistants do that and say, hey, can you come by? Can I stop by your office? I've got this going on. But you know what? With his Viewpoint, he's taught me as well, because that new style, I honestly believe with the transfer portal is really important. He has an incredible relationship with his student athletes. Yep. They love him. At the beginning I was like, maybe he's not tough enough on them, those kinds of things, but he finds a way. And it works. And our kids, it's a really good core. So, I've learned from him as well.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about the student athletes. So.
It's all about the student athletes, but he's also learned from me too, because last year, a couple times, he might use something as an excuse, and I would just say to him, because I'll be honest too, I have to be, because I have to help him grow, right? just say, no, you can't blame COVID. It's not COVID.
Yep.
You need to look at this, look at that. I'm not going to get into your X's and O's. That's not my job. I'm not a basketball coach.
Right.
But you might want to talk to this person or take a look at this, and just throwing out ideas to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for yourself, we're middle of January, coming to the end of January. People have probably blown past their resolutions. But do you have any kind of goal-setting structure that you turn to year after year, whether that's calendar year or the academic year?
For myself, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, we have 6 kids. So now, starting last year, they're all out of the house. So my husband and I have been trying to find our footing there because we've always been used to chasing our kids around and doing this and that. So we have set goals, and you'll love this. He got me a punching bag. It's in the garage for Christmas. And I have gloves. So I'm learning how to box, but to add to my exercise routine. He said, You're going to love this. You'll be really fit. So it does help with stress, but it's great. So no, I do build in time every day. And when we're really shut down, we live very close to Golden Gate Park. I mean, we can walk we can go amazing places in a very short period of time. So, walking those hills and down in the Presidio, I'm not sure if you're familiar with San Francisco, but so many gorgeous places. And we just would do that. Or I would do it on my own, too.
Do you set professional goals as well?
I do. That's been a little harder, because I'm really a people person.
Yeah.
And I really love meeting in person, like getting to know you. This is great. So being here is really good for me. But over Zoom, it was a little harder, but we did do a good job keeping those connections. But I do always want to grow, always. I never want to give that up.
I mean, that's the key to, that growth mindset.
Yes, and I think that's what's great about this business, because not every day is the same. Every day is different. And I always tell people the days I think that I don't have any meetings, nothing's going on, something blows up. And there goes my day, it fills in. But that's okay, because it's good.
That's the job, that's the industry right now.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, even more so. A lot of balls in the air, right?
A lot of changes.
But I love those challenges. And how does my style fit? Do I need to change my style a little bit, especially with younger people coming up? And that's critical for me to be able to do that.
So my last big question for you, we've touched on this very unique career path you've had. Do you think that can be replicated in this day and age?
It's hard. I think it's difficult. I think to become a D3, D2 athletic director, absolutely, you can do that. But to go from D2 to D1, yes, I think you can. You do see it a little bit in coaches, but you may have to go as a senior associate AD, if you haven't been at Division I yet. And I would say that's critically important. So those years for me working under Scott was really, really important to my growth, to really understand what needed to be done in that AD chair. So I would say you just have to have flexibility and be willing to move and make those changes.
Well, Joan, thank you so much for sharing more of your story and more of your wisdom with us. This has been really fun.
You're welcome. Thank you. I enjoyed it.